And we're back. What are we back from exactly? Well, technically nothing, but that's about to change. So over the past 2 years, if you know me, I'm Jacob Sutton, your host of the JSuttHoops Podcast. For the past 2 years, people have been telling me, hey, I love the newsletter, I love all the stuff you do, but when are you going to do a podcast? And people have kind of asked, and, I've thrown around a little bit, produced a couple podcasts in my time so far. And after the 2-year mark, I kind of felt like it was right, so we have a podcast intro as time goes on. But right now we're in the first episode, and I just kind of want to say welcome. And what are we going to talk about on this, JSuttHoops Podcast, companion podcast to my newsletter? Mainly, we're going to be talking about anything and everything in the NBA. As you know, if you read the newsletter, I love to talk about niche guys. I love to talk about the random teams, the schemes that go on that nobody really pays attention to, like how Charles Bassey should definitely be in the league despite being waived by the Spurs and being waived by the Celtics after training camp, but I digress. So we're about to head into the regular season. It is literally today, and I want to go through some of the matchups, what I'm watching for, along with just some general things for the rest of the season, such as the crazy broadcast schedule that we have now under the new media deal, which, spoiler alert, I'm not a massive fan of, but, we're going to look into it anyway. All right, opening matchups, opening night. We are here, and we have 2 matchups to look at. We have the Rockets and the Thunder in a battle of the Western Conference beasts of last year, though my hometown Rockets, as you can see on the hat, didn't exactly perform as well as I thought they would last season in the playoffs, but, they have a couple acquisitions that we'll get to later. And then you have the Lakers and the Warriors, which will not include LeBron James because he suffers from being old, or sciatica, as the official injury report says. So let's just go through Rockets and Thunder. This is obviously, as a Rockets homer, my favorite matchup of opening night. And it comes with a lot of changes. KD is in town now, newly extended for really cheap compared to what a lot of other teams would have paid him, mind you, which I'm thrilled about. That's $90 million over 2 years, $45 million average value per year. Brought in Dorian Finney-Smith, which he's not going to be ready for tonight's game, but he adds so much depth on the wing. Fred VanVleet is out with an ACL tear, as you all know, out for the season. That's going to require a lot more ball handling capabilities from the Rockets, who suddenly have a lack of point guards, though Aaron Holiday, Reed Shepherd, love those guys. We'll get to them in a minute. But man, it's a contending team. It's contending time for the Rockets. And it feels like it's been a lot of years coming. Working through the Şengün Jalen Green pairing was a experiment in futility a little bit, mostly because of Jalen Green's part, and he is of the archetype that is very difficult to build around in today's NBA. And we shipped him off to Phoenix, and we shipped off Dylan Brooks as well, which that's a big defensive loss. But once again, you got back Kevin Durant, and even in his, 38, 39, age 39 season, Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. He is going to score. He can shoot off the catch. He can handle the ball. He doesn't distribute as much as he did earlier in his career, but I hate to say it and hate to be repetitive, but it's Kevin Durant. So let's just look at some of the stuff from the Rockets last year before we get into the Thunder. 52-30, second in Western Conference. Awesome for such a young team. Şengün took the all-star leap. Jalen Green was still somewhat solid until playoffs ran around, which, once again, kind of what you get with a player of his mold, as you are seeing with a lot of players that like to shoot a lot and don't play defense. Points per game, 114.3. That's about league average, and that's been one of the issues for the Rockets over the past few years. But then you get to the defensive rating, which is 110.8, which was 4th in the NBA. And much of that is due to Ime Udoka. Much of that is due to the growth that Tari Eason has had, and Amen Thompson, who I'm going to get into in a moment. But boy, Amen Thompson, y'all. Amen Thompson is good. Net rating, 7th in the league. Pace, 18th. Play a little slower. Once again, kind of what you get in Ime Udoka offense. But now, things have changed. KD is in town. Dorian Finney-Smith is kind of in town. Reed Shepherd is going to get looks. Things are on the up. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, OKC. Y'all know the story on OKC. I really don't have to go super deep into it. won championship. Jalen Williams looked like the second coming of Scottie Pippen. And though he won't be available for this game, notably, because he's still dealing with a wrist issue that he somehow scored 40 points on and then got surgery. But that's an entirely different story. But who will be available is Chet Holmgren, who is supposed to potentially take another leap this season, could be an all-star leap if Jalen Williams misses a lot of time. And even if he doesn't, if OKC's 1, 2, probably 1 in the West, if we're being honest, you might get a 3 all-star team, which is rare, but it happens. Warriors did it multiple times. And Chet's growth is going to be so crucial for this team. He spaces the floor so well. He has become stronger. He's still, skinny. I mean, the man's wiry. It's kind of like Wembanyama if he didn't train with monks and didn't do yoga. And although he may do yoga, I don't know. Somebody will have to let me know on that. But if he, didn't train with Hakeem Olajuwon in the offseason and look like the second coming of Hakeem Olajuwon, but if Hakeem Olajuwon were grown up in France, I guess. But anyway, Chet Holmgren's going to be awesome. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is still here. And I say still here because the man's offense is phenomenal. Won MVP last season, of course. And I'm not a fan of the foul baiting. I'm just going to be real with y'all. If y'all read the newsletter, that's the case. And I'm not a fan of it. But once again, not his fault. It's the rules. And the rules need to be enforced as such. But let's just go through some of the stats. 68-14, first in Western Conference. 107.6 opponents' point per game. That's third in the league. 120.5 points per game. That's fourth in the league. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander averaged over 32 points per game. And that is all you need to know about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But yeah, what am I watching in this matchup? Mainly, I'm going to be looking for how does Durant mesh with the Rockets offense, because over the past few years, one of the issues has been the lack of being able to generate offense on a whim, right? And Şengün has done a really good job with what he's had around him, the baby Jokic style, but he didn't really have the roster around him who could shoot. Jalen Green likes to shoot. Can he shoot? Not as well as you would think based on the amount of shots he takes. And I'm not going to keep ripping on Jalen Green. Love the guy, but just not the guy you want playing off of Alperen Şengün. Amen Thompson, phenomenal player, cannot shoot to this point. If he develops a jumper, then he's everything that we thought Ben Simmons could be, but whatever. And then you have Dillon Brooks, could shoot miraculously, really good shooter at the time. He could space the floor, catch and shoot games, awesome, great. Fred VanVleet, good shooter, maybe not elite. And that's kind of where it stops, right? So bringing in KD and getting Jalen Green out of the equation, even though you're sending Dillon Brooks, who was a good catch and shoot guy, KD is going to be able to take that, drive and kick game from Şengün, take it on the perimeter, maybe take a couple spot up looks. We're going to see how fast KD is and how explosive he is off the first step after, once again, 39 years old. But Kevin Durant is able to make shots when he gets the ball in an open space. And Şengün is so good at driving into the lane, creating open space. And once again, the comparison's overdone, but the Nikola Jokic-esque-ness of Şengün is pretty much made to merge with a guy like KD. But also the elephant in the room for Houston is how are they going to replace the playmaking of Fred VanVleet, right? And it's a tough ask because Amen Thompson can really handle the ball. And I love seeing him handle the ball, but is he a true point guard? I'm not entirely sure yet. And then you've Reed Shepherd, who, once again, like top 3 pick last year, and then didn't play at all. He tore up the G League. I mean, the guy can put up buckets in the G League. And I think he averaged like 32 plus, something like that. And the guy can shoot the ball. And he just didn't get the leeway, because Ime Udoka had a logjam at guard. You're not going to put him over Jalen Green because Jalen Green has the tenor. And now he's going to get the opportunity. Now we get to see what he actually is, right? And preseason, he's looked really good. He had a really good game the other night. And now it's like, hey, you got to step up in your sophomore season, which feels like a rookie season because, once again, he didn't play much last year. So that being said, those are kind of the main things for the Rockets. Like I said, Dorian Finney-Smith is out, but the wing depth is ridiculous. And on OKC's side, the interesting thing is going to be how do they deal with that wing defense, because you don't have Jalen Williams. So that's one less offensive option you're going to have to take on the Amen Thompsons, to take on the however good Kevin Durant's defense is now, to take on the, when you drive to the lane, Clint Capella, because Clint Capella's back, right? And how OKC deals with not having Jalen Williams is really going to rely on Chet Holmgren, I think, because we know SGA is going to put 31, 32 on the board. Like, that's just what he does, right? And you're going to have Chet Holmgren have to step up and really space the floor and push Şengün and the rest of the team out to the perimeter. Because one of the things that I think Houston may have a problem with in the absence of Dorian Finney-Smith and Dillon Brooks is, are you able to play the inside-out game the whole time? Like, are you able to come out to the perimeter, get to the spot-up man, and then also keep in front of him when he drives to the basket? And Chet can do both those things. And he does it quite well for a guy who looks like a string bean. And that's kind of the main thing for OKC, right? I mean, they're a title contending team. They have all the pieces from last year, minus Jalen Williams, who's recovering from injury once again, and nothing's changed. You still got iHeart. You still got Alex Caruso, who Alex Caruso is going to be an interesting case of who do they put him on, because he can defend against anyone, any size, just because of that wingspan. And do you put him on Reed Shepherd and try to shut him down entirely? Do you put him on Amen Thompson and try to shut him down entirely? And normally I'd say Amen, but then in that case, it's like, who is SGA going to defend? And I think if I had to guess, it's probably going to be Caruso on Amen, and then you're going to have SGA on Reed. But then you also have Lou Dort, right? So like, all these guys are very physical defenders, very good defenders. And how well is Houston's new and improved offense going to hold up against OKC, which is such a cerebral defensive team and is coached so well? So if I had to pick, just because Jalen Williams is out, I got Houston winning. That's not just a homer thing. Like, it's kind of a homer thing, but it's not really a homer thing. And Houston, I think, is just better built when you don't have Jalen Williams in the equation. If you have Jalen Williams in the equation, I'm probably going with OKC. But right now, they're just not in that place. Okay, and now moving on to Warriors-Lakers, which is the battle of the Golden State oldies versus the Los Angeles Lucas, because there is no LeBron James, which, as I referred to earlier, he is getting old. The official injury designation is sciatica, which I'm not old, but I have struggled with sciatica in the past, and let me tell you, that is a pain. But anyway, moving on to the actual matchup and the players who are playing, this is an interesting season for Golden State, because now you've got potentially a full season of Jimmy if he's healthy. And you've got what feels like kind of like one of the last hurrahs of the Steph era, right? You still have Steph and Dre. You have Jimmy in the mix. You have Al Horford signed, who still productive in old age. I don't know how productive he's really going to be on the court, like, let's be real. But he adds so much to the locker room. And you have Quentin Post, who was really good in his rookie season to the people that were actually paying attention. And yeah, he's not really a great defender, but he plays basketball like you would want a white man to play basketball. And I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to leave it in there anyway. And Lakers. We know what the Lakers are doing this season. It is the Luka era. It is not the LeBron James era, though. I mean, let's be real. LeBron's still around, and the spotlight's still going to be a lot on him, which may be good for, Luka not having 100% of the spotlight on him like he did in Dallas. But the Lakers have Luka Doncic, and it just still blows my mind, even after all these months. But Luka looked great in Eurobasket in the games he played. He does indeed look skinnier, much to the chagrin of Men's Health magazine. And now it's go time. They've got Deandre Ayton, who I'm going to make this reference. I feel like I've made this reference in one of the newsletter articles, but DeAndre Ayton plays like a man who has soup in his pockets. And let me explain that. It's like DeAndre Ayton went to the store and went to the soup aisle and cracked open a nice cold one of Campbell's soup, the one with like the red stripe on the front. And he just poured it into his pockets. And his goal when he gets anywhere inside the paint is to avoid as much contact as possible so as to avoid spilling his precious Campbell's soup. I don't know why I have that comparison, but it feels very accurate. He avoids contact more than any center his size should. but there's still a chance that he turns out to be a really, really good player. I mean, he was still really statistically good. It's all come down to, can this guy have the mentality of a top player? And if he can't make it work with Luka, it's tough to say that he can make it anywhere. But I'm optimistic, I mean, Luka and him, in theory, would be a really good combo. Ayton, if he's willing to embrace some contact and take some of the soup out of his pockets, can be a phenomenal guy in the post. He's got the footwork, he's got the talent, he's got the skill set. He's just got to, he's got to really get downhill. And I think JJ Redick's really going to push him in that respect. But yeah, let's just do a little quick season review for Warriors and the Lakers. So Warriors, 48-34, finished 7th in the Western Conference. Most of those wins came after the All-Star break when you had Jimmy in tow, but whatever. Points per game was about 17th in the league, so below average, which, once again, kind of shocking for a Warriors team that's usually towards the top of the offense lists. Defensive rating, 7th of 30th. Very good. Draymond Green, advanced metrics, XRAP-M, EPM, all those, loving Draymond Green still. Pace was 17th in the league. Not very common, once again, for a Steph and Steve Kerr run offense, but Jimmy's in town. Things change. Los Angeles Lakers, 50-32, finished 3rd in the Western Conference, acquired Luka Doncic at the deadline in the most shocking and seemingly silly and stupid trade of the century. Points per game, 19th of 30th. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But once again, pre-Luka, post-Luka, completely different eras. Net rating, 14th of 30th, about average. Defensive rating, about average. And pace, really slow, actually slower than the Warriors. So 21st versus the Warriors 17th. And their offense was fine at times. Like, even post-Luka, things weren't really flowing because you had Jackson Hayes as the role man. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I can't remember if Zach Lowe or No Dunks, which, shout out to them. They're on Substack now. And somebody was talking about, like, Deandre Ayton, the biggest compliment he's gotten the entire time is he's better than Jackson Hayes. And if you're latching on to he's better than Jackson Hayes, that's not great. But he is indeed better than Jackson Hayes. And that is where the Lakers offense really needs to go, even without LeBron on the floor, is can the Luka, DeAndre Ayton pick and roll work? And how does Austin Reeves kind of assert himself? So that kind of goes into, our little matchup, what to watch for, right? And can the Lakers show that they're not fully dependent on LeBron, especially when, Luka's on the court, but also when he's off the court, because I would expect the Lakers to kind of try to stagger them. And if Luka tears up the floor on the court, but then he steps off and everything is terrible, then you just kind of got a Dallas rendition where it's like, hey, we're doing an encore, except this time it's in LA for potentially a lot more money in the future. But that's not really what the Lakers want, right? Coming into a full season for the Warriors of the Steph, Jimmy, Dre combo, how is this kind of going to mesh for the whole season? Can it look really good late after the All-Star break? And are they able to kind of get things flowing, especially with Al Horford? Like I said, battle of the oldies here. You got the Golden State Warriors, as NBA Twitter continues to call them. And can Al Horford work well with Draymond Green at, Al Horford's age? Because is Al Horford just going to be making catch and shoot shots? Like, what's he going to be doing? So that's kind of what I'm going to be watching out for. Once again, DeAndre Ayton, what's he going to do against the Warriors' weird, amorphous big lineups? Like, we got DeAndre Ayton versus Quentin Post. DeAndre Ayton should be winning that one. I love Quentin Post, but DeAndre Ayton should be winning that one. Then, of course, they could put Draymond Green on him, but that's going to be a tougher thing for Ayton to crack. But Ayton, in theory, should be feasting here because the Warriors' big man depth continues to be an issue, even with Al Horford. Al Horford is not your absolute lockdown defender. He's a good advanced analytics defender because he deflects a lot of balls off the ball, but he's not lockdown. He's not Kevon Looney around the rim like the Warriors used to have, which I still can't believe they let him go, but that's another story for another time. And lastly, tempo and spacing, because both teams played kind of slow last year compared to previous years. And with Luka on the court, Luka likes to play slow, but will he play faster now that he's lighter and was featured in Men's Health magazine and everybody's hyped about it? And, on the Warrior side, are they going to pick up the pace again too now that they've got the Steph, Jimmy, Dre? Like, they could push the pace a little bit if they want to. But it's going to be interesting to see who's going to kind of change their game style from last season. I would guess it'd be more of the Lakers because we kind of saw a little bit of what the Warriors could be late in the last season. But it's going to be interesting. You got Steve Kerr, who is not a coach that's very set in his ways traditionally. And then you have JJ Redick, who we still don't really know who he is as a coach when he's given the right offensive tools. So that's kind of that matchup, what I'm watching. But I want to get into some of the other matchups too throughout the rest of the week, opening week, because there are some interesting ones. First up, October 22nd, Cleveland Cavaliers at New York Knicks. This is two of the top East Conference teams. We need to see what are they made of. The Cavs, we should know. I mean, we saw them last season. They were phenomenal in the regular season. And then you've got the Knicks. But the problem is this isn't really a good comparison because Darius Garland is still going to be out, and that significantly hurts this Cavs team. I don't care what anybody says about the fit between Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Having Darius Garland on the floor is so crucial, especially when you lost Ty Jerome in free agency, which that's a tough loss. And will we see Lonzo Ball? I believe so. I haven't officially checked, but I believe we'll see Lonzo Ball, which can Lonzo Ball return to 50% of what he was? Because if he can, you got a pretty good six man and a good Ty Jerome replacement. But for the Knicks, same old, same old. You got the Giannis rumors out there. I don't really think that's going to be a thing because what do you give up if you're the Knicks? Do you give Karl Anthony Towns? Because would the Bucks even want that? The Bucks want picks. You don't have picks. Like, I get it. Giannis might want to be in New York if he doesn't want to be in Milwaukee, but I just don't see it. We got the dumpster battle. So we got that same day as Cavs Knicks. And just show me some of those 4 guard and Danny Wolf lineups, Brooklyn. I want to see that because the Nets are in such a weird position, y'all. It's they drafted pretty much all guards minus Danny Wolf in the draft. You Ben Saraf, Igor Demin. You've got Nolan Traore, who I was really high on early in the process, but kind of tailed off a little bit. Still think he's got something in him, but what are the Nets going to do? Because they've got Cam Thomas on qualifying offer, and he's going to go into unrestricted free agency next year. And is he just going to put up shots? You have Michael Porter Jr., who also likes to put up tons of shots. And then you got this weird amorphous guard lineup plus Danny Wolf, who thinks he's Alperen Şengün, but like kind of isn't, good prospect, just weird play style for the NBA. And I don't know what the Nets are going to do, man. Honestly, they're going to tank. I mean, let's be real. You have a good top 3 picks in this year's draft. And as we'll reference with a couple other teams later is you can just tank. And of course you can't tank and according to the league's rules, but that's what they're doing. And then you have the Hornets, my favorite team to hate on all season long. And they're not terrible this season, assuming LaMelo Ball's healthy. If you get Brandon Miller, who takes another leap, if Con Knippel looks good as a rookie, if Ryan Kalkbrenner is a serviceable big man, you have a team. Like you can, LaMelo Ball is going to play like he has AirPods in, which is one of the funniest comparisons I've ever seen anybody make. I saw that online. It's so accurate. But Brandon Miller has some good chops in the mid-range, and they've got a roster. And I don't think it's going to work out because it never does for the Hornets. I have in my notes here, the Hornets have not had an average margin of victory greater than 1 since the 2009-2010 season. Good times. But yeah, I mean, if LaMelo stays healthy, you could have a good season. You're not going to make the playoffs. Not at all. You're probably not even going to make the play-in, even in a weaker East. And this kind of feels like the make or break season for LaMelo, where you've got to show us what you're made of and stay healthy, or the Hornets might be better getting off you because you can't be relied on as a guy to build around. It's the same thing with the Zion Williamson argument, where you're phenomenal when you're on the court, but you got to stay on the court. Next matchup, Raptors Bucks, October 24th, which in my notes I said feels like a just how bad is this team matchup. The Bucks are the Bucks. They have Giannis. Giannis is Giannis. And when you have Giannis, you can win games. But, it's a family affair over there in Milwaukee, signing pretty much every member of the Antetokounmpo family except their dog, which I don't even know if they have a dog, but if they do, they might as well sign him. And really, we need to know how good is this team. I've been high on some of the players. Cole Anthony, I think, is a really, really good dark horse, like most improved player candidate if he gets the minutes. And I've said that before. Giannis could easily have an MVP level statistical season, but we need to see how Miles Turner is. And they stretched and waived Damian Lillard to sign Miles Turner, and he's got to be able to show that he can, I guess, be the second best guy on this roster, which feels weird to say for Miles Turner because he really shouldn't have that kind of pressure on him. But that's just what the Bucks have to work with right now. And if things go south, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of Giannis like, oh, I'll reevaluate in 6-7 months. But if things go really south, like, does he reevaluate the trade deadline? Like, what if a team has picks? What if the Spurs want to make something happen? Like, there's some teams that can make things happen. But then you have the Raptors, who have Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes. A lot of these guys want the ball in their hands. And that is an interesting paradigm for a team that doesn't really know what they are yet. They're paying a lot of money to a lot of guys. And RJ Barrett, getting like $30 million a year, sort of thing. Emmanuel Quickley getting paid a lot of money. But it's kind of one of those things where somebody's got to assert themselves as the main star and show that they can have a cohesive team. And kind of like LaMelo, but in a different way. Scotty Barnes has a weird situation now where I'm not sure if he's a number one option. Maybe he's better suited in the Jalen Williams type role where it's, you're a number two option who can be a number one option on any night. But I just don't think he can facilitate well enough to be a number one option. And I want him to prove me wrong, but this is going to be one of those early season games, very, very early season, where it's like, hey, how are you going to do against a Bucks team that's kind of beat up a little bit, right? San Antonio Spurs with Wemby at Mavericks, October 22nd. So we got Wemby versus Cooper Flag early in the season. No De'Aaron Fox here, still out with injury, so take note of that, which means that Stephon Castle is going to get a lot of looks, and Stephon Castle has looked great. He had 9 assists his last preseason game to just 1 turnover. Jumper looks better. He looks more consistent. He looks like he's comfortable out there. Dylan Harper, too. He played 1 preseason, 2 preseason games, something like that, and he looked solid. He looked comfortable, and he's going to be able to be eased into the system. And I just want to see how Castle develops, right? Because I think we had this weird stigma of last year of like, oh, this year's rookie class is kind of bad, right? It's like, yeah, but also you got some good guys in every class, right? You're going to have some all-stars in every class, and Castle may very well be one of those guys. And I want to see how he kind of develops alongside, especially when De'Aaron Fox gets back. How's he going to play off the ball? And, but overall, like, you've got to be thrilled if you're a Spurs fan. You got Wemby, you got Castle, you got Harper, you got Fox. You got picks. Like, what is there to be mad at? Saw on the No Dunks podcast that they're calling the Wemby Cornet combo French vanilla. French horn was also thrown around. I was saying maybe we could do the corn revolution, something like that. Once again, sad Charles Bassey isn't on the Spurs anymore because I'm an absolute sicko and think Charles Bassey is actually really... If Andre Drummond has a job in this league, Charles Bassey should have a job in this league. But hey, now we got big body Biyombo, third stringer, Bismack Biyombo. We love some Bismack Biyombo action right there. I'd say that 5 times fast. Lastly, Pacers versus Grizzlies, October 25th. And my notes, how real is the Nembhard most improved player? Because now you got Tyrese Haliburton out of the equation. Nembhard's going to get a lot of looks. And a lot of people are really hyping him, as well as Ben Mathurin. Ben Mathurin's a bucket. How are they going to step up? Could either win most improved player. It's certainly possible. I'd put my money on Nembhard before Mathurin. But hey, I mean, Mathurin could average like 20 plus points per game on semi-decent efficiency, and it'd be all good. Pacers are going to play hard. Rick Carlisle is genius, and the Grizz, we don't really know how their head coach is really going to play. I mean, you could see a little bit, but things are new. Thomas Izalo, which I had to write that down to how to pronounce his last name, and I'm probably going to have to do that throughout the season. But brand new head coach, no more Desmond Bane for the Grizzlies, so big identity change, lack of spacing. I mean, I'm genuinely worried about the spacing on this team, but things are new, and so we need to see, can Ja Morant return to an All-NBA level? Can he successfully continue to improve his jumper? And can he stay healthy? Above all else, he's missed suspensions, he's missed injuries, all that stuff, but like LaMelo Ball, it's weird all these guys are kind of grouped together, right? But show us what you got. Stay healthy. Pacers have very little big depth. Love me some Jay Huff, but, Jaren Jackson Jr. versus former Grizzly Jay Huff, like, if that's your matchup, Jaren Jackson Jr. should probably get that, which, once again, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s got to assert himself here. He had a bit of what I would call a little bit of a down year last year. Nothing massive, but we need to see, is this the number 2 option still. And I think he is. I think he's shown us enough already, but you got to be able to take the next step. And this Grizzlies team is in a Western Conference that is loaded because Memphis exists in the Western Conference because we love geography in the NBA. But it's going to be tough, man. Like, you got to really take a leap. One of these two guys got to take the superstar leap, like the SGA level leap. And if you don't do that, like, you're not going to make it through the Western Conference. But lastly, big storylines to track throughout the season. Injuries, LeBron sciatica, Fred VanVleet out for the season. Dorian Finney-Smith still dealing with injury. De'Aaron Fox still dealing with injury. Darius Garland still dealing with injury. All of these guys are dealing with off-season injuries that are bleeding into the regular season. And it's a shame. And I think the league is going to have to eventually look at, hey, we're having a lot of injuries and they're bleeding into the regular season to start. And everyone was looking at the Achilles stuff last year, and now you got to deal with the consequences. So maybe Jason Tatum comes back by December from his Achilles injury because this man seems to be dunking, which is a crazy, crazy, crazy video if y'all haven't watched it. But injuries suck. Newsflash. Western Conference, especially loaded this year, and they have a lot of parity, a lot of contenders, a lot of depth. I haven't even talked about the Nuggets on this episode, but the Nuggets are there, and they're, I don't know if they're better than ever, but they're pretty close. I mean, Cam Johnson's a shooter. Broadcasting, as I referred to earlier, we got like 5 different streaming services, and we got to shell out money for all of them. And it sucks, it kind of sucks. I get it. Money talks. I get the media rights deals are there for a reason, but I mean, NBC, Peacock, Amazon Prime, ESPN, ESPN Plus. Am I missing one? NBA TV, no more TNT. But just a mess, man. But I guess that's what you get when, you want the cash to flow in. The cash must flow. But anyway, lastly, Tank Watch. Love me some good Tank Watch at the beginning of the season. Just how bad are the Jazz, Nets, Wizards, Hornets, etc.? Because, there's a lot of good prospects this year. You got Cam Boozer, Durin Peterson. Durin Peterson has looked really good. AJ DeBonsa, who's been hyped up for years and years. And any of them could end up being the number 1 pick. And when you have a class that has potentially 3 number 1 picks, people are going to tank just to get those top 4 odds. And how soon does Danny Ainge realize that Lauri Markkanen is too good of a player to tank? How soon does he move off of him? Because Lauri Markkanen sweepstakes could be good. Detroit's been mocked a lot to him. How long till we have Trey Johnson, rookie on the Wizards, taking 10 threes a game? Because, the Wizards aren't, they got something of a future, but like Trey Johnson's going to be taking a lot of shots late into the season. Just want to warn y'all in advance. But anyway, y'all, this has actually been a really fun time. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to be bringing in some guests that write about specific teams, do some deep dives, Celtics, Wizards, Cavs, Knicks, try to get some people in there. If you know somebody who's a really good writer, Substack or not, let them know about this. I'd love to, talk shop with them. But this has been the JSuttHoops Podcast, and hopefully the first of many. So if you aren't already subscribed and you're just happen to stumble upon this, you can go to my newsletter on Substack. Currently, it's at jsuthoops.substack.com, and might be getting some merch soon. But I'll tell you about that a little later. But until next time, see you guys.